Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have been joined by Mr. Amit Malik, who happens to be a seasoned HR professional and has risen the ranks from HR to the positions of CEOs and MD for Aviva and currently serving as president for WadzPay. He has a fascinating journey starting as a HR and his talent was found and nurtured by people like P. Dwarkanasa. And he has ever since moved from the positions and ranks from manager HR to vice president for business HR partners. And he's moved from ABN AMRO, the similar role to Bank of America, then finally to insurance organization, and finally coming to a very new kind of organization that is into blockchain space. So we welcome you, Mr. Amit, on board with us. And this is one of the features that we've started on BW People, that is called HR Voices. And what better to have you as the first panelist with us on board with us. So welcome once again.
Thank you. Namaste to all your viewers, listeners. Thank you, Talis and BW for having me. It's an honor and a privilege. And like I always say, BW is like home. So it's always good to be a part.
So to begin with, we'd like to start from the initial days. You passed out your master's and you have done your engineering. And why did you choose HR as a profession? And how did the journey begin? So that is everyone is interested in, because there are very few people in HR fraternity who have moved from HR to the leadership roles. We'd like to understand that better from you.
Thank you. It's very interesting. When I went on to do engineering in our times, you would remember we hardly had much of choices in terms of career. So, second year of my engineering, I kind of realized that that is not something that, I'm going to do for my life. And I came and I told my father, who's a retired colonel. He told me, listen, son, you've already spent 2 years doing this. You better complete it. You cannot be a quitter. And after that, you do whatever you want to do. So I said, fine. Once I finished my engineering, there was no scope of going and doing the work. So I thought I'd go do my post-graduation. And I was talking to a lot of people at that time who, as to what to do in an MBA specialization. I was quite clear I would do a master's in business administration. But so a lot of people suggested saying you should do marketing, you should do sales, that's your personality. A lot of them said you should do finance. But, very few, people said, look at human resources. It's an upcoming field. A lot of things is happening in that domain, and you may be interested to do that. And then I got an admission in SIBM Pune, which was one of the top 3 courses in the country. I cleared that exam and I said, why not? So maybe it was part direction, part destiny that led me to be HR. So, and I'm not the one who says I love people, so I did HR. No, I think the circumstances made it happen. But yes, I always say that, once an HR person, always a HR person and heart. That I remain despite moving on to business and, now building a business across South Asia and Pacific.
So how was the transition like? How did we, what was the difference in the role from CPO to a CEO and managing director for Aviva? That happens to be a insurance dominated field. So what was the transition like? How do you feel? What was the changes like?
So I think, first and foremost, it's about, it was the confidence of the board and the leader that I had as my CEO, who thought that I could go on and do this role. Actually, I was challenged, and Talis, the story is that what happened was we were doing a strategy review in Aviva, building out new strategy in 2015-16. And at that time, it was decided that as part of the executive team, everyone would present to the board a strategy which is outside their domain. So I got to present sales and distribution strategy to the board, as a part. And at that time, some of the board members remarked to my boss saying, oh, you have a successor and a succession plan for the CDO. I think that's where the conversation ignited. And gradually the board came back. So that's the background of the story as to how I got the job. I think the transition was very interesting, because it was within the organization. I knew people. So that was a good starting point. I'd spent 5 years in Aviva. I knew the people. I knew the organization well. The challenge was people had a mindset saying this HR guy now doing operations, also doing retention, which is a big book for any insurance company. A lot of revenue comes from, and you have an annual target and, which is a high number. Will he be able to deliver, and how well, and why would they want to give it to him? I think that was a mindset issue, which one faced. And also the, when you join from outside of the organization, you get 3-6 months to settle in and deliver. For me, the whole point was everyone was expecting me to deliver the next day because I was within the organization. And also, some of my colleagues on the table were very intrigued and wanted to know how will I deliver and how soon can I deliver? Saying, have they made the right choice? Have they not made the right choice? Because, let's be honest, everyone has aspirations, and it was a role which was aspirational. So I think those were the mindsets that I worked with. But I think overall, from an Aviva standpoint, the whole culture was of developing people. So that really helped. People really stepped up to say, we will help you. And I also have this whole habit of asking all stupid questions and curious questions that I don't know, which actually helped me transition. But I did a couple of things which I'd like to share. I sat down with the call center executive to understand calls. I went into the basics of the process to understand what it is, why does a customer call, what does retention work, how do we do, read the underwriting policy, read the claims policies, started to read the policies, because when something comes to your table to decide, how do you decide that, how do you take the right call? And also I always communicated to my team that I am not the smartest person in the room, and my idea is never the best idea. And I think those are the elements that helped me transition and gave people confidence to share their views with me, their thoughts with me, which I could learn. But yeah, the decisions were all mine. So right or wrong, I stand with them.
That's great. So again, you have been, moving from, a field which was completely human resources, and your career started with human resources. Then you moved to insurance and led that. So when you talk about a chief people's officer, so there are some functions that you are acquainted with within your 20 years of span of your career that you're aware of. Suddenly you have finance coming in, suddenly you have operations, actuary, and various aspects that you have to take a call on. So how fast does the transition happen, and how do we the understanding of the, say for example, actuarial process happens to be a very difficult thing that I can't understand at all. So how did you cope up with that, and how fast that transition was?
Oh, it was very, very rapid. I took over in January, and we have to do our financials as per the regulator in March. And then you have to do all the reserving, the solvency, the year-end financials. All of that has to be signed off and presented to the board in April after the March numbers. So on one side, there was pressure to do a lot of business because January, February, March is a very high intensity sales process months for any insurance company. 40% of the business of the annual target has to be done in JFM. So that was that. On the other hand, and that we were coming out of COVID. So do not forget, at that time, we had lots of claims which were there. So we were having 3x to 4x monthly claims which were above average, so that had to be factored in. We had to do a lot of reserving and yet maintain the solvency and the capital position of the company. So I think all of that was the challenges that I faced when I walked into the CEO's office on 1st of January. But, I think, again, like I said, I was very, very clear about what I knew from my earlier days, as the COO and as the HR head. But yes, did I know the reserving policy? No. So I got top 2 or 3 of my actuarial team members into the room. I understood from them what happens. I read the policy. So my appointed actuary used to, joke. I read the reserving policy, and he said I was the only CEO who would have read it 2.5 times in 4 days. And I had some 50-60 questions to ask of him. I still don't know fully, but I think I got there 60-70%, and that really helped. Also, I think it's about empowerment and delegation that comes, as a leader. I was always very clear to involve both my appointed actuary, my CFO, into the critical calls to help me understand what would be the ramification, my chief investment officer, how the working capital is, what would be the impact, what are we going to do, what is in line. So I think all of us collectively came together to, guide me. And then, it's easy when you have capable team members, it's very easy to take a call, and I think that's where it was. But yes, those were the days when I've spent 12 to 13 hours, 14 hours in office. And then I used to carry a big bag which had my reading material for the night. So, I'm an avid reader, Thalys. But those 3-4 months, I don't think I read anything outside of the work papers for some 14-15 hours a day. But very interesting. Would I do it again? Anytime.
The other thing I could recall in our last meeting when we had at one of the events, and you spoke about the implementation of work from home that happened during COVID. And I feel that is the HR's experience that came in being at that point of time. And I think it would have helped a lot. So I wish if you can share that experience with our audience as well.
So, when I took over, and I say this, when I took over the ops role, I was always intrigued by saying, why do the ops team have to be sitting in the office, at the month end and working till 3, 4 in the night? And I would say, why can't the underwriters go home and do this online? And I was told, no, there are regulations. This is required, data, customer, all of that we can't do. We can't do the month end process from home. It has to be done in the office. So, there are many times I would visit the teams at 12, 12:30 in the night because they would be working, just to kind of be with them and pep them up. And then lo and behold came COVID. And once COVID hit, the whole world stopped and the business didn't stop. And then we had to pivot ourselves to do the annual closing in 4 days time from home. And I think that was the big learning for all of us. That was a big shift. And, and that was about empowerment, where we told people, there is nobody. So you are at home and you are taking a call. You don't have a colleague that you can refer to. You don't have your boss who is sitting that you can walk in. How many times can you call somebody like that? And we told people, go ahead, take the right call, keep the organization at the center, keep the customer at the center and take a call. As long as you are doing right for the customer, as long as you're doing right for the organization, we will stand by you on the call. Even if it goes wrong, doesn't matter. We will live with it. And I think that's the feeling of confidence and the focus of organization and customer helped us do that and tide over that piece. And today, work from home, is a part of the fabric now, and as part of the organization. So yeah, I think that helps.
And the next transition that everyone is talking about you right now is your movement to WadzPay. So we all would like to understand that and hear about WadzPay and how again, the same thing, every time I look at your profile, I see, okay, what is the transition that's happening? What is the change that Amit is bringing in his career now? So WadzPay is something which is completely different and it's pretty new. So
yes.
We also would like to understand that again, the coping mechanism is required. And why I'm asking these questions is so that people who are from HR and they need to understand that how the moments can happen. We generally get stuck with the functions and the roles and the the monotonous things on our career growth in terms of maybe monetary gains and the ranks that will go up. But once you start changing the gear and move to a different domain, it definitely helps. So I think your experience on that also will be a learning experience for the HRs.
So, 10 years in Aviva, I really thought that I had done enough of insurance. I went to the board and I said, I really want to move on. And the whole conversation was, what are you going to do next? I said, I don't know. And you and I have discussed about it offline personally. I told you I'm exploring. So I decided that, and I wanted to start a new chapter to do something else that I had not done. But I was very clear that I can only start that chapter when I end one chapter. So, there was no successive page turners in this. You had to close one chapter to start the other. So I finished my Aviva chapter. And then WadzPay happened, and I was always wanting to look at saying, let me do something that I've not done, something that is different, something that brings in a new challenge and gives me an opportunity to learn. So, WadzPay is a fintech organization which is based out of Singapore. We have operations in Middle East, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Pacific is where I've joined in to build the business. We are an interoperable blockchain payments organization. So, that's what we do. So our vision is to bring digital currency and assets to the masses. That's what we want to do, and, we want to do it within the regulation. So we study each country's regulation. We see what is allowed, what is not allowed. And in that country, then we offer products as to what is allowed. So that is where it's an interesting space. It's a space that we are building for the future. My remit is about 8 countries in South Asia and, Australia, New Zealand, and some islands in Pacific to begin with. And I think it's about building the business. So I've never had the opportunity to build a business. So this is my first time rolling up the sleeves, dirtying the hands, trying to build the business. So, it's as basic as looking at what licenses we need, whether we need a payment license, how do we incorporate the sales arm, how do we hire people, what are the targets that we set, what are the products that we tailor make for the market. That's what we are. What products do we offer? Who do we go and offer to? We are a B2B2C company. We are not a B2C company. And, and we are not a crypto company. So that kind of differentiates us. So, how do you then position? So we are talking about legal aspects as I speak in my last 2 to 2.5 months. We're talking about how do we position the brand? How do we market the brand? How do we take the brand to the customer. What is our brand go-to strategy? What are the products that we want to offer? So it's about building, and I'm very excited about it. It's about building the whole piece together. And I think next 12 to 18 months, once we are through the build, you will see the power of the brand and the offerings that we have. So, really, really excited.
It's amazing to hear, and we wish to see you, grow in this. And again, we would definitely love to see what you do next. Now, coming back to HR, as we are talking about BW people and on HR voices. So, I would like to understand that your transition from GSK, then you move to Amex, ABN AMRO, Bank of America, Aviva. So how's the contribution from these organizations come to you and help build the career for you?
I think I'm very thankful to each organization. Honestly, Talis, each and every one of them gave me a very different experience. When I started my career with GSK, you mentioned Mr. Dwarkanath at the beginning of the session. He's been my mentor for life, and I think from him, I've learned the whole orientation of the importance of an HR person to understand sales. So I've sold Horlicks. I always say this story. I've sold Horlicks in the streets of Azamgarh. I've gone to a retailer and cleaned the bottle of Horlicks with my hanky. I've done POS, I've put. So all of that experience of understanding business came from GSK, right? And then when I moved to American Express, I was moving from a FMCG to a financial services. Honestly, I did not know how a credit card works. Forget how a bank works, and that's where the experience came in from a financial standpoint. Again, American Express gave me the opportunity to work in India, gave me an opportunity to do a very, strong HR project in Malaysia in the region to, close a business in a different country. So gave me all the exposures. Moved into ABN. I moved into ABN, Talis, at a time when it was to be acquired by either Barclays or RBS at that time. It was all in the news, right? And the head of HR at that time, Raj, did ask me saying, why do you want to join us? There is so much of uncertainty. What if the acquiring organization doesn't, lets you go, or there is a change? I told them, listen, either Barclays will acquire you or RBS will acquire. And I said, I want to be at the center of seeing how an acquisition and a merger works. I wish I would have asked for something else, but that's what I wished at that time, and I said, and I want to go through this. And I said, whatever the future will hold, I was relatively very young at that time. I said, whatever the future will hold, we will see, we will deal with it. And, and then I was the HR leader for the retail bank, with the opportunity came because of RBS. And then, once RBS decided to exit India at that time, and they publicly made that known, then then I moved on to captive. I had not done captive. And then relatively, when Aviva called, I was only 13 years of my experience, when I got the HR head role. God was very kind, I think. And I thought that was an opportunity, and I went to my mentors and I discussed, like you said, and each and every one of them did tell me that, they told me what's just go ahead and take the opportunity. What will happen, Maxim? You will fail. No, if you fail, you will do something else, but just go ahead and do it. And, I have always believed in, I have always had 2 or 3 mentors, because, you have people, but you go to them for different things. So I've been very, very fortunate to have 3 or 4 mentors. And I tell every youngster that, you should have 3 or 4 mentors, because every mentor brings in something different. And you also, can learn from them. So, pick out the best, be a chooser, cherry pick the best from each mentor, and then, take that into account. And I've had the benefit. And, so I think I've been very lucky with both my mentors and organizations, and even WadzPay. I'm very thankful to them. They've taken a bet on someone like me who's never worked in a startup environment, never worked in a fintech space. So I come from financial industry. So I think I have been extremely lucky and fortunate with the organizations who have taken bet on me, and I've always strived to give them back in whichever form I can.
I'd like to understand one thing. There has been a lot of talk about the HR tech and the changes which are coming in across the globe. We usually see that the number of HR professionals has been growing, but along with that, the tech has also been complementing it. So how do you see the growth of HR tech and a change in the HR functions in the future? You've already spoken about the future ready HRs that we heard you last time. So I would, for these audience, if you can throw some light on that aspect, and what, apart from HR tech, what are the other things that HR professionals can look at?
So I'll take a step back. I think every job in the organization is going to have a digital element to it. Outside of HR, within HR, every job. So, every job holder should start asking themselves, if their job doesn't have a digital element, then they should be very worried, because then that job is going to get extinct in near term, not even short, medium term or long term, in near term. So I think that's the first step. Every job will have a digital aspect. I think the second thing, coming back to a question of HR tech, I think, I'll be a little provocative here. I think HR got to adopt technology a little later than other functions did in the organization. So if you look at marketing, if you look at operations, I think even if you look at sales and distribution, I think they jumped onto the technology wagon far sooner than what HR did. But I think HR has this habit that no matter when it joins the bandwagon, it creates a larger impact. So I think the noise is all there. See, I don't think there is any, today you cannot envisage an HR function or any function in an organization without tech and digital. So that is given. I think it's for the HR professionals to now start getting on to the point of saying how they make the most of it. And the challenge there comes is, I think at the HR leadership level, people need to understand technology. See, I'm being provocative here, and a lot of HR leaders may not like it, but even today, the technology call, whether it is HR or whatever, is taken by the CTO, not by the CPO or the CHR. Right? And I think that transition needs to happen. The HR function needs to own the call that it takes from a technology standpoint, right? And I think that shift is happening, and that shift has to be accelerated. I think that's the first part. The second is, when we talk about HR as a function and we talk about technology, the technology will bring in a lot of focus on metrics. See, HR function has always had this, layout saying some things can be measured, some cannot be measured. They have to be felt. They have to be experienced. But I think technology will bring a lot of focus on metrics and a lot of focus on delivery and measurement. And I think that is the change that we all, everyone in HR function has to be aware of. Saying you will now have numbers and be far more under the radar of saying what is the ROI, what is the investment. We shy away from talking about ROIs, whether it's on a training budget, on the learning management system, on payroll system. But I think those questions will get asked by the CEO, by the CFO, because the investments is huge and people will ask that question, and rightfully so. And I think technology will also enable the HR teams to answer that question. So, people should take technology as a partner, which will enable them to be more successful. But my other caveat is, no matter how much technology we have in HR, we still need to understand that it will not replace the human touch that is there. That human touch has to be maintained, and it has to go hand in hand with the technology piece. I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, just to share with you, we had our the happiest workplace awards recently, and surprisingly, there are organizations who have made it possible to gauge how happy the employees are. So, what you spoke about, that generally we talk about, we don't talk about metrics when it comes to behavior. So that, I think, that has been replaced, and the happiness and the well-being and the healthiness of the organizations they've been started getting measured and stuff. So that is happening, and we also have seen some certain things in assessment space where they are making the career charts and giving to people. So these they are at a very nascent stage. You can't rely on that, but that has happened, and eventually it will grow. So you already said, okay, they can't be a replacement for human touch. But to what extent these technologies will be utilized and alongside the professionals who are working on ground with it?
I think you would see a lot of demarcation in the HR work. I think a lot of routine, mundane work will go on to self-service portals, just like it's for a customer self-service on an IVR you would have on HR. A lot of it is already gone in high-tech organizations, but I think all organizations it will go. I think that will start to happen. You don't need anybody, you don't need an HR person to tell you about leave policy or other policies or framework. I think that will all go. I think a lot of work when it comes to performance management, assessments, that will all be technology enabled, which should be, and that is how it would be. Something like succession planning will adopt technology far more faster within HR than other streams. So I think all of that would go into technology, and the technology will help and augment and free up HR professionals' time to then look at the strategy, look at the direction of the business and be able to contribute. I think that time that technology will free up will be used by HR to actually make an impact. I always say this, right? When we look at the board and, the board talks about 5 years where the market would be, where the organization would be, what products it would need, how customers will change, how markets would change, how products would change. Similarly, in the same breath, the board has to start talking about saying how people capability will change and how we need to do what we need to do today to be able to have our people at the forefront to make all these changes manifest that we are talking about. And I think that shift will come in with technology, which will enable other jobs to be done, to be taken the time out. And I think that's what the HR leaders need to focus on. I think it's a very, very interesting time for HR leaders when they have technology to assist them, to help them take the function at an absolutely, higher levels and raise the bar from a delivery standpoint.
I'll just share something from my life. My dad happened to be a chartered accountant, and he never learned computers. He would never touch a desktop in those days, and everything was there was a transition that was happening across, and that softwares and everything were coming in. But he was like, I'm comfortable with my journals and ledgers and stuff, and he kept on doing those things. So the redundancy happens, and there is a very visible resistance to adaptability to the IT and things which are coming in right now. So do you see techno HR coming in existence over a period of time where you have HR who's also a enabled person?
Sorry, HR who is also
a tech enabled person?
Yes, absolutely. See, I think I differentiate between computers and tech.
Yeah.
Tech is far more intuitive, right? I get your example, and so is my father. My father is 81, and he tells me that he plans his travel on WhatsApp and on Facebook with his group, and he just needs a printer, and he's also into all of that. So, and he doesn't know computers just like your father, you said. So, he will do all of that on WhatsApp and Facebook and Messenger and plan all of that. I think technology is already there. I think the technology solutions are already there. And I think HR person today is a techno HR person. So I don't think it's about the future. It is about today. It is the HR person today itself is a techno HR person. I think what I'm trying to emphasize here is they have to be open to the possibility of technology and not feel insecure about it.
Absolutely.
And I think once that shift comes in, saying technology is to aid me and not to replace me. I think that differentiation, when it happens across employees, across organizations, I think that's where what you are saying will start to happen, because it is about experience. Today, technology is about experience, right? And I can tell you, I prefer an Apple phone over an Android phone, and because it's about experience. A lot of us use technology tools about experience, and I think that is where HR also has to understand that, just like we talk about customer experience, we talk about employee experience. I think all of that is about experience. And I think I can, I've been on a jury with Businessworld, and I thought we saw some great nominations on that platform about how employee experience is at the center and the core of what HR is delivering. I think that is going to get further strengthened in the future.
Now, coming towards the last segment of this, the learnings that we wish from your end to the younger professionals who are there in the HR space, what is how they should look at their careers and maybe build a career like Amit Malik.
No. Amit Malik, not like Amit Malik, but how to build a career. I think couple of things that I want to tell to the young people who are getting into the workforce, irrespective of what their profession is, whether they are marketing, sales, HR. I think first and foremost, focus on, have a goal. Now, whether that goal is a bullseye goal or whether that goal is a compass method goal, it doesn't matter. The route to the goal can be bullseye, can be compass, which is navigation oriented. That is an individual preference. Have a goal and have a time period. Whether it is 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 6 years, whatever the goal and whatever the time period, at least so that when every step that you take in your career, you should be able to judge for yourself, is that step going to bring you closer to your goal? And if that is, then you should take that step. If not, then you should reevaluate. I think that's one parameter that I always tell people. It's like Alice in Wonderland, which is my often quoted and my favorite story, where Alice is lost. She's sitting on a crossroad. Cat says, "Where do you want to go?" She says, "Anywhere." Then the cat says, "Just take any road. It doesn't matter." So have a goal. That's the first. Second is, when we come out of business schools, when we come out, we all have a lot of knowledge, but people need to remember that knowledge is like a well. We keep taking out of it and we keep succeeding in the initial years of our career. We also have to keep refilling the well. Otherwise, the well goes dry, and that happens to a lot of people in their mid careers. They have taken so much out of the knowledge of the well that they have not refilled it. So keep learning, keep refilling. I have done courses, from Cornell, Tallis e-course in 2011 when it was not fashionable to do e-course. I used to spend nights waking up doing an e-course on my laptop from Cornell as HR strategic leadership when it was not fashionable. People didn't do it, but I thought it gave me a lot of value. I went on to do general management program from said business school, even though I was an HR guy. And in that cohort, there were only 2 HR guys in a cohort of 14. It was a general management program. But I think that helped me open and challenge my own thinking. That helped me understand the business perspective, because in a cohort, if you have 38 people who only talk about numbers and business and brand positioning, then you start to then it becomes a part of your thinking. So challenge yourself, keep learning. That is my second piece. And you don't have to read books. I love reading books. Some people go and learn via YouTube, some learn via articles, some learn via magazines or literature or journals. Whatever is your way of learning, audio, whatever is your way of learning, keep learning. That is the second piece. Third, that I always feel is have the courage and the conviction, both to say the right thing and be convinced about it, and also to articulate your views and build your views. So, that is what I would always say. I think that's a hallmark of a professional, to have courage and conviction. Fourth is take risks. Take risks. I wish I had the opportunity to do what I did, moving from HR to CEO at the later end of my career earlier on. Take that risk, pivot for 1 year, contract with people, pivot for 1 year, come back to your function, do different things, try different things, take risks. See, success is not always vertical growth or growth in money, like you said. It can also be wider. It can also be skills at some point. So I think take risk. And fifth, I always tell younger people is have fun. It's a long journey. It's a journey. Have fun, enjoy, build relationships, get yourself some mentors, build relationships, get your anchors in life, and have fun. I think it's a long ride, because career is a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. It was a pleasure listening to you. And as always, an inspiring story. And we hope that we engage quite often on BW People. And we are also planning certain other activities along with it. And you're most welcome to be a part of BW's team. And we'd welcome you again for our upcoming things. Thanks a lot, Mr.
Thank you so much. And thank you to all your listeners and viewers. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Tallis, it's been a very interesting discussion. Thank you and namaste.
Thanks a lot.